I will call the meeting to order at 7:01. And first item on the agenda to call for any late additions. I know Terry had posted in the shared drive the sheriff's contract, which is up for renewal, but we have until July 1st. And I guess as a rule, I'm gonna, other than emergencies, kind of hate to just add things to the agenda. If we give 2 more weeks, we still have time and we'll have a chance to review that.
You should, excuse me,
Yeah,
you should read it. There's an amendment.
right.
So, and it is, we do have till the next meeting.
Yep,
Plus it went up a little
as always.
bit.
Yeah, so that's posted there. So read it before the next meeting. We'll have that on the agenda next time. But not hearing any additions for this meeting, we'll move to approving the minutes from the last meeting of May 11th. Do I hear a motion on that?
I move we accept the minutes from May 11th.
Thank you. And a second? Tom?
I'll second. I'll
Yep.
second. Yeah. I'm just trying to get Jessica in the meeting. She didn't get that.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
Any comments or changes or notes or anything on there? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye, wave your
Aye.
hand. You can't see Paul wave his hand.
You got to say aye, Paul.
Unmute, aye.
Aye, okay.
Exactly. Unmute aye.
And unmute aye. So that's 4 without Jessica in, so that's approved. Or any opposed? But I haven't heard Jessica. So anyways, it's approved. They are approved. Thank you. That was awkward, but we're through that.
Sorry, I wasn't recording. I'm sorry, Rich. I just started it, so you're going to miss the beginning. I'm a little disheveled today.
I recorded starting at the beginning, so we're all set.
Thank you. Perfect.
I'm recording now.
Okay, next item on the agenda to review the pay orders for the town office, listers, highway department, and transfer station. And there are 4 weeks out there. The ones dated the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th, and June 5th. And do I hear a motion to approve those? Or basically, as we're set up right now, I will approve them tomorrow, but I'll welcome any feedback if anybody saw anything in there.
I noticed a lot of repairs to the 2012 International truck. There's kind of an explanation in there, but seems to a lot of money went into that. But
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there was that big order.
There was Terry mentioned some stuff today. There was, I can't remember the details about all, but there definitely was some major work that was done on the engine for the oldest truck, I think it is.
In fact, she also mentioned that there's a rebate on some of the work done on that truck some time back that she's applying for, to the tune of about 13 grand.
It's a lot of money. The 3 repairs.
Well, the rebate, I don't know how that's connected to the specific repairs, but there is definitely some money to be chased.
It almost looks like they had to redo some of their work. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's all I noticed.
I've got a question. It's sort of generic, and I probably should have seen this before. I was looking at the consolidated bill, and I see that the town office has 8 phone lines. Is there a reason we have so many phone lines? There's a bill with like $600 a month. I mean, that's a lot.
That includes, I think, the line for the transfer station, the lines in there.
Okay.
And there's another line.
So line transfer station, 2 in the office, 1 for the listers,
One upstairs.
1 upstairs. Okay.
Town garage, at least 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Just wanted to check on it. That's all.
Yeah.
Good question.
Part of an audit.
Yeah, Andy, to your point, I will try to find a little bit more information. I believe, though, what you had mentioned, Paul, too, on that rebate, the rebate I understood was for the newer truck that was having all the problems, that there was a class action suit type thing on that, but maybe I was mistaken that it's the old truck.
It could have been, it could be you're correct. And I was hearing the rebate truck and problems with truck aging all in the same sentence and perhaps got them mixed. Be good to check in with Terry on that one.
I will check with her and Keith to make sure that that's not work being redone for something they had done inadequately or.
Okay, I'll make a motion to have Greg sign the work pay orders.
Be aware though that his point motion, I'll make a second so we can have conversation. I second that motion.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation is there was times when that truck went back, if I've got the right trucks, for stuff that was not fixed the first time. And so there may be some of that, because we talked about that at one time, that the billing seemed to be done by somebody who may not have been aware of the fact that they was redoing what was done. So there is some checking into that. And I think it ought to be coordinated with Keith too, to make sure we're all talking about the same stuff.
Yes, I will do that. And I guess, I mean, this is kind of maybe a little awkward, but I mean, this is more feedback for the invoices, to sign off the invoices as we voted a month or two ago. I don't think we need the motion for me to sign them, but that's.
Right.
I welcome that
Okay.
though. Thank you.
I don't know, whatever. Yeah, sign them. Yeah,
We're duplicating. I don't want to sign it until I'll find out with Keith. So
good enough.
that's a good point. Okay. Any other comments? Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi, sorry for the delay.
I guess I had one other comment on or question that I was going to ask Terry that I saw in there tonight was we've given the $2,000 appropriation to the Leland and Gray Educational Fund again. And I know we had approved that in our budgets, but I also remember there was a question of whether that was being rolled into their general fund or the general school budget and not being appropriated for for other, grants or whatever the educational fund does. So I'll look into that one also.
Sarah's raising her hand.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The money was sent to the wrong Leland and Gray, but they sent it back, and so that was sending it to the right foundation. That
Okay, okay.
$2,000.
Perfect. Excellent.
We did get it back, and then she sent it to the right people.
Perfect. Want to make sure it's going to the right thing for scholarships or wherever it goes. So. Okay. On to, well, I guess we do have a motion on the floor, so we can follow through on that. There is a motion and a second to authorize me to sign off on the pay orders in the payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll
Aye.
abstain.
Can I ask you something? Are we redoing this? Because before we said that you, and if you couldn't, I would sign them. Now we're gonna ask for a motion every meeting?
don't know.
Is that what we're doing?
I don't believe we should or need to ask for,
Me either.
but there was one. I mean, we can vote it down, I suppose. I don't know how that works as far as Robert's rules when there's already a standing motion and a authorization to have me sign them just because we're working remotely.
The author of the motion can withdraw it.
I'll withdraw.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, on to item number 6, which is a discussion and update on the Rawsonville Monument and the Jamaica schoolhouse. And each year it comes up that Steve Rawson asks if this is how the conversation started. Steve Rawson asked if the town can mow around the monument and also at the school in preparation of their meeting that they host there every August. And some of the background has led us to kind of, I think we've discussed this before, but I need to be reminded. of who actually owns the monument and who's responsible for maintaining it and that sort of thing. And with some sleuthing from Lou, we had found that the monument actually exists on a portion of the property that's owned by Susan Rice, who owns the Mountain Riders, the shop across the street. And, as a separate small portion contingent or adjacent to Wilbur Rice's property, which is where Keep Sports is. I've noticed that they have been maintaining it. So the monument has been mowed around. But there's two portions to this discussion. The first would be what happens with the monument, so to speak, and then the second of how do we maintain or to authorize the maintenance, I guess, of mowing around the town or the schoolhouse. So I don't know. I mean, that's probably again another awkward introduction. But Lou, do you want to jump in and give a little bit of background, or I can start and you can tell me where I'm gone astray on it. But there's a very, very small portion, maybe 20 feet square, that consists of the monument that was originally on the Rice's property, and there's some background deeds where that was conveyed to a group of the Rawsons at one time. Questions out there are whether or not that group exists anymore, and their desire to transfer that to the town, I guess.
Okay, right. It goes back a little bit further than that, in that back in about 1918, the part of the monument was deeded to B.B. Rawson from the peers, the people who own the property at that time, peers. And B.B. Rawson then deeded it to the descendants of the Rawson Family Association. However, the interesting thing about that deed is, although it was recorded, it was never entered into the grand list, which means that the grand list doesn't really recognize that parcel as being owned by them.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Then,
I'm off mute.
then it has existed, though. The deed has existed through the deed for Susan Rice. So in Susan Rice's deed, it actually says exempting that parcel which has been deeded to B.B. Rawson. So one way or the other, we ought to, I should mention that Susan Rice and her, the people who own the property before her, were the ones that paid the taxes on that approximately 0.8 acres. The 0.8 acres is that part that she owns. The Rawson piece is only a very tiny couple of rods. It's very, very small. So from a town's perspective, I think we ought to make it clear who owns it one way or the other, and we should put it on the grand list. And if it's put on the grand list as being owned by B.B. Rawson or the Rawson descendants, they ought to probably get an exemption from the town for paying taxes on that. The other alternative is to make it clearer by actually the town taking possession of it. As far as the amount of tax revenue, it would not be great. It would be very minuscule. I think the only cost would really be the lawyer's fees and maybe a survey. Now, then the question is, who pays for those fees? Should it be the Rawson Family Association, so they can make sure that the town maintains it, or should it be town, or maybe split between the two? But that's the background from the title standpoint of the parcel. From the standpoint of its historical significance, I would certainly hate to see that monument go unmaintained or actually be lost from the town. I was thinking it might even be something that we could, if the town owned it, we could petition the state to put one of those markers next to it and it could be, kind of a nice thing to have in town. But anyways, I asked the Historical Foundation at the suggestion of Paul to get their opinion, and they're all in agreement that it ought to be maintained as some sort of historical marker or something that is maybe part of the Rawson Schoolhouse.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Lou. And I guess this kind of all comes back because each year we are asked to maintain it or to mow around it in a once a year fashion along with the school. And we usually, oblige and do that. And the discussion now is maybe it's a little easier if we're going to continue to maintain it, that we actually own it. I mean, that would be one piece of this, or to go the opposite direction and say not. But it does make some sense. It is contiguous to the school property, which is owned by the town, and obviously has some connections. I guess, do we want to make a motion to move forward this? I mean, I guess right now the motion really is to suggest if we want to go this way, to the current owner, the Rawson Family Foundation, to propose that we move it to the town. But I guess our first step would be to actually get it onto the grand list and then have to clean up that aspect of it. Is that right, Lou? And then they can move forward to petition us to transfer it to the town?
Right. I think the way I'd proceed there is I'd contact VLCT lawyers and find out, because it's never been on the grand list, how to actually deal with that.
I have a suggestion.
Paul, yeah.
It seems to me we could cut out half of the lawyers by simply dealing with Susan Rice, since she's the property owner, and buy it from her for $1 and keep the lawyers minimum down to a minimum, and then just proceed from that point. Because really, at this, as near as I can tell from Lou's research, the property still belongs to Susan Rice. It's been deeded to this family, sort of semi-officially, but we don't have the paperwork to prove it back to the grand list. If we simply purchase it from Susan Rice, should we decide to go that way, that would obviate the Rice family's ownership of it in any way we want to take a look at that. We would go ahead and mow it. Uh-oh, we have a lawyer waving at me down the bottom. Maybe I missed the point.
Yeah.
But the idea, though, is that we'd simplify it if we would just deal with Susan Rice instead of the Rawsonville family, since they're not on the grand list. Ta-da. Next.
Except that
So
there
it
is.
sounds like it's not just Susan Rice, right? Some of the land is owned by the other Wilbur Rice, right?
No,
So
actually,
adjacent.
some family relationship there, correct?
Well, not this
One
portion.
time, Wilbur-
Those are fully separate.
Yeah.
The two Rices are fully separate, but within that one small portion, if you're looking at the map, that one small portion, that little triangle, there's still a corner, a very small corner of that's another property that's just not marked on there because it's not on the grand list.
Right. So I'm gonna respectfully disagree with Paul. I think if the will of the select board is to have the town either ensure that that piece is ensconced within the Rawson Association or is acquired by the town for whatever it's going to be acquired for, we do need to fix the issue that Lou has articulated. I don't think we have to pay someone else to do that. I'm qualified to do that, so I'd be happy to do that.
Yay.
But we do need to fix that and then undertake the next step, which is either ensure that it remains in the Rawson Association if that still exists as an entity, and then come and arrive at an agreement with them, or simply agree with them for the town to purchase for a nominal amount that property. I think it's in everybody's interest that its ownership is clear and that the obligation to maintain it is clear, because it would be an eyesore if it were not maintained, and nobody wants that, either commercially or otherwise. But I think it does have to happen deliberately, and I'm happy to do that work.
Can you make the transfer given the confusion around the Rawsonville, the paperwork that Lou has showing that it was given to the Rawsonville family under some pretext, can you go ahead and make the transfer in addition to that or around that, or?
So any transfer now of that property without resolving the prior issues means that that is vulnerable to a challenge later. It means there's a cloud on title, and Vermont has very interesting but quirky rules around cloud on title. So you apply to the court with some evidence, which is relatively straightforward, to get that removed so that the ownership can be reflected in an updated deed. And then you enter into an agreement to either enter a quick claim deed if it's going to be essentially a free transfer, or something, or a warranty deed, and and then it's owned by the town or it's owned by the association wherever we land.
So I guess our next question is, do we as a town wish to take possession of that monument?
I would suggest that we do. I think it's significant as far as the historical aspect, but even to the point of, like Jessica was saying, I mean, we want to maintain it. We have been maintaining it, and if it's all part of one parcel of property that we already own and maintain, that just makes sense. I don't think the maintenance costs are going to go up by adding that to our grand scheme of things, but. And like Lou said, the tax, it's not going to take that much off of the tax value of the town either.
I should also point out that it's always a little bit odd to have a piece of property be owned by an association which is aging and which may or may not be there in 20 or 50 years.
You're talking about us, huh?
I agree with Lou. My recommendation would be barring an unanticipated expense that the town acquire the parcel.
I'll make a motion that the town acquire the parcel around the Rawsonville monument.
Okay.
Do we have the parcel number?
No, because it's never been put on.
No, so there's no parcel.
So it would be a multi-step resolution that the town research, and I think we have another once I do the research and I tell the select board everything that has to happen in order to correct the prior, remove the cloud on that parcel, then we can make a next step motion to reach out to the current owners and discuss, I think it's still a little bit.
Let me rephrase it. I'll make a motion to move forward on continuing to research acquiring the Rawsonville property.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
So we have
One
4
opposed.
ayes and 1 nay. Motion carries. And further to that, the discussion, the next step of that discussion was the ongoing maintenance of the town, of the property surrounding the schoolhouse. And I know Steve Rawson always brings it to our attention and asks if it can be mowed. And I think back in history a little bit, it was always kind of maintained by, an unofficial organization who maintained the property, the Friends of the School. In the past several years, we've put it out to bid or had D&K maintenance actually maintain it. We can, I believe, we could ask our road crews, so to speak, there's not a road in there, but they ask them to maintain it. I don't know if there's a will of the board on any of those issues. Steve, that's how this kind of came up. Steve Rawson asked if we would maintain the property again, or mow the property basically. And it's a possibility of mowing it once a year and prior to the August event, or to maintain it for, more general appeal and doing it on a more regular basis.
I noted when I drove by there the other day, it was quite long. The lawn out by the schoolhouse is really, really long.
It definitely is. And up until now, I mean, it appears that that around the monument has been mowed on a regular basis, and that seems like that it's been done by Homestead, who have been contracted by the Rices to maintain the commercial properties. So around the school is definitely overgrown. I mean, I'm not sure it needs to be manicured at a nice, very nice lawn, but maybe on a once a month basis to get in there and do some top level mowing would be my thought.
I think it might be a good idea to check with Keith if we have the equipment that'll handle that yard. I can't recall how rough it is, whether or not it can be done by a hand mower or if it needs to have, you know, a weed whacker or some kind of a brush hog, or I don't know what's back there enough to know. But it might be worth checking on him before we make a decision.
Very, very good point. I know he's moved forward with doing some more maintenance or mowing in town. Those those areas of town that always seem to be missed, you know, small little green in front of the church and the sidewalks in front of the cemetery there and the town hall. So they have purchased a mower, but you're right, it may be just too rough in there to get a regular push mower in there. I'll take that up with Keith to see if that could be something they could do.
As long as the grass is now, a push mower is not going to go through that.
No.
You're going to need to do something to knock all that down. It's probably 8-10 inches. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty long.
I mean, it could be done with a
The weed whacker.
to begin
Yeah.
with, and then mowed secondarily. I'll follow up with Keith on that, and if that makes sense with everybody, and we'll put this aside to determine whether or not we take on the mowing of it. Make
Good
sense?
idea. Yep.
Okay. All right, so next item on the agenda, open and review the bids for trash hauling. As everybody knows, our contract with Casella expires the end of June. We had renewed a temporary contract with them when they basically pulled out of our previous one, and this next one is due to expire, and we have received 2 bids, one of them from Casella and one of them from Triple T. And the one from Casella came in via email, and I know that there's a lot of portions to this. I know Terry was going to put up there, I don't know if she had a chance later today, just
Today.
there's rates for numerous things for hauling and for the tonnage and for the recycles and blah, blah, blah. I can walk through every piece of that. There was a bid sheet that was included in the RFQ. So hopefully we're going to have apples to apples here. Does everybody have that, or should I just read it off and we can slowly write down things? This is kind of one of the awkward things about doing sealed bids when we're on a Zoom call. No comments?
I'm trying to pull it up on the computer, but she did send out some paperwork today. I
Yeah.
just got it a little while ago.
I looked at it, but I need it in front of me.
So what?
I'd have to get it up on my screen. Like
So
that.
this what Terry had put up there before.
That it?
Yes.
It's the rates of the contract that we're in right now, and which is yeah, so those are the rates of the contract that we're in right now, which coincidentally happen to be, I'm just kind of going side by side by side, I believe those are what they've proposed again. 4,275 yeah, so that is the rates that they have proposed again for the 3-year contract. So we're good there. That's easy. So she posted up what they were before, and that was at my suggestion that people would want to say, what have we been paying?
You're referring to Exhibit A?
Yes.
Oh, there it is right there. Oh, good. You had it up there.
Yeah.
Good. You beat me to it. Good.
I got it.
Yeah, so Exhibit A is what they've put here in their bid. So that's easy. We can, I guess the only other thing that's not on there is the organics collection, and they've got those at $25 per cart per pickup. We currently have 4 bins on a regular basis. Only 2 of them are used, and they're picked up once a week. So those numbers are not included in this bid.
Okay.
The
So
other
looking
one that they've put in the bid is $100 per container for rental. Right now we're using the containers that are owned by the Wyndham Solid Waste District at no fee, at no expense. But many of those are starting to near the end of their life. And so at some point during this contract, a lot of people, especially people, down in the other towns that are using these, or that we're going to have to start renting containers if they just kind of start to crap out on us. Everybody got a good picture of that? I'll move to.
So 200. So what you're saying, Greg, is 200 a month for organics? If we're doing
50,
25
right.
times 2 times 4.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one's the only one that's set up on a monthly or a weekly regular pickup. The other ones are based on a call-in. Dan calls them in when they're needed. And they've got those rates in there based on whether they're doing a single or double haul.
Is the rental on the containers $100 per container?
Per container.
So we would there'd be $300 for the rental.
It'd be $500.
Yeah.
So we have 2 construction bins.
Right. 500. My bad. Yep.
And we have the 2 recycle bins, and then also the compactor.
And that's per month.
That is per month per container, $100. Yeah, which is.
I mean, that's
a number.
$6,000 a year. How much are the containers?
They're probably $3,000 or $4,000 each.
Okay.
That's just a real guess based on what we were looking at before when we were looking at doing a box container.
Yeah.
Renting one for the swap shop.
Do they mind us using those containers, or?
Okay, so next bid here is from Triple T. Got a cover letter here, which I'm happy to read, but it's just a kind of the happiness of thank you for the opportunity. On their bid sheet, they have for this municipal waste for the haul price $190 and $110 a ton. For construction debris, $190 and $110 a ton. For single stream recyclables, $190 for the haul. Processing charge plus $40 a ton. Processing charge, which is currently $117 plus $40 a ton. They do not have a price non-applicable for the co-mingled containers or for the mixed paperboard. So I'm not sure. Well, that's what it says. So anyways, there's no price on co-mingled containers or mixed paperboard. So is that telling us that they don't do the recyclables, although they put a quote on the single stream recycle? The organics collection is in the cover letter. Yeah, I must admit this is awkward. This is not. Should I read the letter?
Maybe you should.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to quote the town's solid waste hauling needs. Our approach for handling the organics collection program is by using Organic Solutions heavy-duty compostable bags. These bags are intended to be collected with your MSW, your municipal solid waste. We would request that the compost still be placed using 64-gallon wheeled carts for drop-off. The carts can be emptied into the compactor at the end of the day prior to the compactor being switched out. This would keep the compost at the very end of the compactor for separating from the municipal solid waste. The bags would be collected and brought to Wyndham Solid Waste Compost Facility. All charges associated with this service are included in the municipal solid waste portion of the bid in attachment A. I have included information on the organics bags, and organics is a brand, a capitalized. We collect recycling as single stream. Single stream allow both paper recycling and containers to be combined in one bin. If we would like to use a 30 cubic yard open top container or continue using the Wyndham Solid Waste municipal containers, if you would like, we can use a 30 cubic yard open container or continue using the Wyndham Solid Waste containers. The larger container will reduce the number of hauls needed. The charges for handling and processing of the recyclables is a challenge. We propose to pass through the processing charge from the Casella operated municipal recycling facility in Rutland, currently $117 a ton. In addition, we would charge $40 per ton for transferring the recycling into trailers at Brattleboro Salvage and trucking to Rutland. Our acceptable level of recyclable contamination is 2% by volume or weight, and the waste would be charged at the solid waste rate per ton. Thanks again for the opportunity.
The organic bags they're talking about, those are to be purchased by the individual homeowners, or are we talking about organics into a separate bag there at the transfer station, which would then be put into the container?
It's not fully clear to me, although it does look like it says the bags are intended to be collected with the municipal solid waste. We would request that the compost be placed using 64-gallon, would still be placed using 64-gallon wheeled carts for drop-off. The carts can be emptied into the compactor at the end of the day.
So it
I
sounds
personally
like,
don't see how that happens, because each one of those carts, once they're full of compost, weighs probably a couple hundred pounds. But that's just a commentary.
64-gallon bags full of compost, that's going to be, it sounds as if we had a container in which we put in a 64-gallon bag, and then we had the citizens pour their the waste in that container. When it's full, it goes into the, that seems like, I don't know, as opposed to having somebody come and collect it themselves.
Right. I mean, in some ways that makes a lot of sense, but hauling one of those things up the path from where we have the compost, which are necessary to be in a closed facility due to the bears, hauling those up the path during the winter and things like that to get them up to the compactor sounds a little bit of a challenge to me.
Good point. Good point.
Am I missing that these guys seem a lot cheaper though?
They do seem a lot cheaper. Their hauling charge, well, their hauling charge is $190 compared to $225. They do not have a fee for a tandem haul, and Terry seemed to recall that when we used them before, they did not offer that either. They may just not have the equipment to do that. Their dollars per ton are at $110 versus $94 for Casella. So
Could I
you have
make
a
a-
little bit
could
of
I make-
apples and oranges here?
Could I make a recommendation then?
Certainly.
The contract is good through the end of the month, right?
For Casella, yes.
Yes. So compile all this information and get it to us so we can really do a cost analysis on it, because you're throwing numbers around and
Oh, absolutely.
I have no idea. So I think we should kick it to the next meeting. Everyone gets the information they need, and then we can have a valuable discussion about cost. Because I don't feel, I'm lost right now as far as what.
And I'm looking at it and I'm lost too. I mean, there's no way that you can, even when you're staring at the numbers, you need to sit there with what we've done in the past, our tonnage that we haul, the
Excel
number of
spreadsheet.
hauls that we make. And this is a challenge that, I mean, we'll put this back, we'll challenge Terry with this to say, take these numbers, plug it into what our past year's haulage is, and, you know, number of hauls, number of tons, things like that. There's still some big questions in my mind about the recycling, but you know, the organics, but
Well, it sounds like the recycling is single stream, so everything goes in
Right.
one container
Right.
versus separating the paper from the recycling stuff. Everything just goes in one.
Right, which could be very beneficial.
it could be.
Or they could just be taking that and dumping it in the landfill.
Right. It very much is surprising to me though, because the plastics and the bottles very much don't have any value to them. They're a cost, where cardboard still has value to it. And the fact that they're going to commingle them and not take that opportunity to take that profit out is kind of confusing to me.
That just may be the way they do it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
They sort
I
it
think,
somehow.
Tom, your point makes total sense, that we hold off
Table
on
it.
awarding these bids until we can really analyze the numbers.
Yeah, we have a few weeks, so I don't
Yes,
see.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Are we meeting live next time, or are we meeting virtual?
I didn't have it on the agenda. I know there's been some discussion about there's a lot of practical aspects of meeting live. We certainly, I think, can space ourselves, and we can maybe put that on as an agenda item toward the end of the meeting when we talk about our next meeting of where and when and how we meet.
Well, I bring it up now because it would be kind of be a whole lot simpler to manage this if we were all in person. We had the paperwork in front of us.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I have no apprehension about that, but we can talk about it. Or do we want to bring that up? I mean, let's finish out this agenda item right now.
Yeah.
There's no way we're meeting tonight on this, so I think that Tom's point of moving this to the next meeting and have some analysis done, we can close out this agenda item. And when we get to the end of our meeting tonight, when we discuss our next meeting, we can bring that up as a discussion point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I don't know that we have to have a motion on this, but that we move this to our next meeting, or
Well,
should
since let me check. Does the wait a minute? I lost my agenda.
the
Hold on.
item it says review and award contract, so I guess we probably do need a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Since we
So-
said we're going to review it, we need to make a motion to detain or to table it, or
I'll
table
make
it
a
small
motion
word,
to
maybe but move
table.
it to next time.
I'll make a motion to table the 2 bids we've received for waste management till the next meeting.
I
second
second the
that.
motion.
Second, Jessica, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We have unanimous approval. Thank you. That makes sense. Okay, so I will get these down to Terry, have her plug them into what we've done in the past for our numbers, and get that back out to everybody sooner than later so you can think about it and then have it on the next agenda. Okay. On to item number 8, update on the Communication Union District, including the resolution to appoint a representative and 2 alternates from the town of Jamaica to the board. So maybe Chris, if you want to just jump in and give a 5-minute update. I guess everybody's probably stayed up to date on a lot of the email going back and forth. And I have printed out the resolution, which I can read. Does that make sense? Any updates? I mean, it sounds like we're moving forward, obviously, which is great.
Yes, we've been admitted provisionally pending executing that formal resolution that I sent you, and I guess you have. The other major thing that has happened, well, there are 2 major things. The number of towns that are in the Deerfield Valley CUD now are up to 10, and there are 2 more that are on the verge of joining. And the Wyndham Regional Commission's feasibility study has been, final version has been released. I sent copies to all the board members, and it's available on the Wyndham Regional Organization's website for anybody else who would like to see it. Its major points are that deploying a fiber to the home network is feasible if we have at least 15,000 homes in the CUD, and we achieve a 30% take rate. They recommend a 3-phase approach, starting with the completely unserved homes, and then the underserved areas, and then finally the area overbuild the areas that are already served by cable. There are a number of requirements that they have, which include finding a suitable internet service provider and operator and structuring a proper contract with them, achieving the 30% rate of the 15,000 homes in the CUD, and achieving an average $100 a month revenue per user rate. Managing the continued management of the CUD, and which includes getting a substantial number of pre-subscriptions prior to starting work on the net. Getting bridge funding, which would be a loan from the Vermont Economic Development Authority, and or grants and subordinated debts to cover the period between starting work and when we're at a point where we can issue revenue bonds. And finally, issuing the long-term revenue bonds. And one last one is no runaway inflation of costs during construction. So in the period from which we were provisionally approved to now, we've heard presentations from 4 vendors who might be interested in helping us build out the network. And they range from a vendor that does a turnkey job, Mission Valley, which was one of the contractors that participated in the Wyndham Regional feasibility study. And their presentation probably best fits the CUD concept for operating a nonprofit company to manage net. And then from Consolidated Communications, which probably is offering the lowest cost and fastest schedule, but probably I would have to say they're least ready to deal with a communications union district and would require very elaborate contracts but they're willing to undertake it. They just want everything spelled out in the contract. And if they're the one that's selected, probably ought to make Jessica the representative and me the alternative, because it's going to be quite an effort to get in contract with them, I take. So that's where we stand now. There's more information presentations to come in quick order. The Wyndham Regional business plan is still due out this summer, and it's not very clear yet what we're doing now and the various approaches we are hearing from the vendors, and the business plan from the region is going to meld, but that still is the goal. So we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, all right. Well,
So,
thank you.
oh, anyhow, if you pass that resolution, then Greg, you and Sarah have to sign it and snail mail it to the clerk, David Jones.
Right, okay, yep. And so this is a resolution that does 2 things. One, says that we are, that we've accepted, well, I can read it, but basically that we're gonna join the Deerfield Valley Communication Union District, and then also appoint our representatives and alternatives, alternates. So it's kind of cumbersome, or not cumbersome, but lengthy. And I will forward you this, Sarah, for the minutes. So it's titled "A Resolution Appointing a Representative to the Governing Board of the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District." Whereas the town of Jamaica has been informed of the formation of the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District under the provision of 30 VSA Chapter 82, and whereas provided in Section 3082 in said chapter of the town of Jamaica has written to the governing board of said district to request admission to the district, and whereas the Select Board of the town of Jamaica has reason to believe its application for admission to the district will be accepted, and whereas provided in Section 3059 of said chapter, the legislative body or each member town shall appoint annually on or before the last Monday in April a representative and 1 or more alternates to the governing board of the district for 1-year terms. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Select Board of the town of Jamaica hereby appoints the following representatives and one or more alternates to the governing board of the Deerfield Valley Communication Union District for terms of 1 year each. And each of those representatives is here tonight with us. Representing us, Chris Robbins, and as our 2 alternates, Jessica Pollock and John Suhikian. And the resolution adopted at the regular meeting of tonight. So
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution as stated, as read.
Thank
So
you.
well.
Take these.
I'll second it.
Second, Paul, thank you. And any further comments or questions, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 So we have a unanimous approval. Any opposed? Obviously none. Any abstaining? Thank you, everyone.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great movement forward. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica and John and Chris. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I've
Thank you.
noticed.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I've noticed in all of this that I've missed an agenda item and no one called me on it. On number 5, we are kind of on an ongoing item to just discuss town concerns, COVID-19 updates, office operations, other town operations and things like that. So maybe we don't have any concerns. Maybe everything's generally good. But
Well,
I guess I'm going to go back to that now. So
Sounds good.
No, I was going to just say that I have noticed up where we live that there are a few houses that are Airbnb houses that have had people coming to visit. And I don't know if, I'm sure most of you are on Vermont Digger. And the state has some very complicated ways of managing who can come from what counties around us. And I honestly, I don't know how, first of all, somebody coming from one of the affected counties is really going to know what Vermont has stated and whether an innkeeper is going to abide by that. But it's problematic. So I just bring it up, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but it is the government being a little bit too fine and detailed, and I doubt very much it's going to be adhered to. So.
yeah, and that's been the case for some time. That opening up of that select counties and regions only began today. So up until this point, everybody coming from out of state needed to quarantine for 14 days. And then people coming from other counties outside of those selected regions still have to quarantine for 14 days. So they're obviously not abiding by that rule.
Yeah. You just have to look across the street to Honey Pie to see
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
a few people.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Unbelievable.
that's all takeout. That's not.
Yeah, but the out-of-state plates, there's so many people up on the weekends
Obviously,
now.
yeah. And that's been going on for a long time, but a lot of those are,
Our second
I
homeowners.
mean,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily transient. They've hunkered down here, but there's still, if it's an Airbnb house and they're just in for one weekend and out, then that's a different situation.
Yeah.
It's I suppose there could be some things that we could push for, but it's hard to police those things. And certainly we can make a point to educate and share information. Paul.
We've talked about this on the Emergency Management Director's weekly conference several times. And it's been brought to the state. And the answer is we prefer to educate than prosecute. Kind of a condensed version of what they said. Nobody wants to follow up on it. You know, it's a combination of we don't want to alienate our bread and butter when the tourist season's open. At the same time, we'd like to be able to live long enough to appreciate the tourist season when it opens.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a tough call. The state doesn't have any real interest in holding anybody to their feet to the fire. They keep making the rules and basically are giving educational opportunities. Yeah.
Well, I mean, my thought would be the state would do a better job if they actually shared with us of the people who were affected with COVID. You know, what percentage by age, pre-existing conditions. So you really have a better idea, because if you look, I believe 40% of all of the COVID deaths were from people in nursing homes, and primarily people over the age of 70 and many with pre-existing conditions. So, you know, somebody coming up who's in their 40s or 50s in good health, odds are it's not going to be an issue. But without those types of statistics, you have no idea. But in general, it's mainly people with pre-existing conditions, people who've been in large gatherings, and so some of these rules that the state is putting forth are just not policeable. And I just think that the bureaucrats up there are spending way too much time coming up with some grandiose ways of trying to manage this opening. But most of the rules
Having
won't be
said that,
followed.
the people who are most likely to be seriously affected by the COVID may not be the people who are transmitting it from the city to us. One of the reasons why Vermont is so low in its, I mean, let's just call it high in its cleanliness, so to speak, as opposed to like Boston, New York area, is because we've had all these ridiculous kind of things shutting it down. Even though we're making, understand, I hate to defend making a rule we're not going to enforce because that just makes me choke, but having some sense of how we can manage Vermont compared to everybody else, we've done a fairly decent job, which is why they're all coming here anyhow, because we're perceived to be safer than their own hometowns.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be dealing with that forever.
Right.
And just one other point too is, and Vermont Digger has pointed this out, is the sales of homes in Vermont is starting to spike, and as people are looking for alternatives from their city living. So we may end up seeing an increase in home sales in our area, as well as maybe some new home construction, which is a good thing.
Yep.
Yep. Joel, you had something?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, the company Airbnb, which is not the only company that does this, has blocked rental until June 15th. Now, that doesn't mean there may be people who have already rented, and I don't know what the control is on that. Perhaps Airbnb can be approached to censure people who are breaking the law.
Yep. And I also believe that there's a lot of people that have put their houses out for Airbnb, but that doesn't preclude them from telling their friends, hey, I've got a house up there that we rent, and you guys, why don't you go rent it? And so Airbnb is kind of out of the picture anyway. So there's going to be 100 ways to look at this. And
yeah. And in terms of what John said about property value, because I was at a transportation committee meeting today, and Chris talked about that very thing about property values. They're starting to go up. And he also mentioned that this is the exact same thing that happened after 9/11. So it's likely that there will be an influx of people coming up here either to live in their second homes or to buy homes. And prices from, I think he said Realtor.com?
Realtor.com.
Right. Is reflecting that prices are starting to go up. Now, what happened after 9/11 is that houses became unaffordable to local people because of this. So we'll see all this play out as time goes on, because this is going to last a long time.
yeah, and certainly, even though we may not have a whole lot of power in the whole thing, we certainly should be aware of and voice our concerns up to the levels where they need to go. So one of the other, or Jessica.
Yeah, just one quick question. So on that same topic, we're just going to keep operations in the town hall, in the town clerk's office the way they are now? Was that?
Well, that was one of the major things I think we should talk about. I know that seems to be working fairly well. I know it allows us to kind of limit the number of people kind of coming and going out of the office. I think the functional side of things is working. Sarah, you can chime in anytime you'd like. I think everything works. Things are getting done. People are being, getting work done, but also the townspeople are getting what they need. There's a lot of benefit of having both Sarah and Terry in the office at the same time, but at the same time, I think we should continue to restrict just the free flow of people coming in and out. It makes the office more productive and more safe. So
I agree.
Yes, we should follow the guidance of the governor. And when the quarantine or whatever is lifted, then you know, whenever that may be, in August or whatever, then we could go back to normal.
Yeah. Well, right now, I think
We're absolutely powerless over what we were just talking about, if you ask me. I mean, there was a non-emergency number you could call if you knew someone was coming in and out, but as a select board, I don't think we can do anything about that. But as far as the office goes, until, you know, the state government, we probably could follow what they do. You know, when they feel it's safe, when Dr. Levine from the Department of Health says that it's okay to open up the State House or whatever, the legislature meets in person, then we can probably really think it's safe to open up the office. Although
Right.
we could anyway, but I think it's all right the way it is.
Yep. Joel, comments, feedback?
Yeah, Arizona opened up and it's been now a little over a week or so, and they're starting to see a really big spike. And their hospital beds are filling up, and they're a large percentage of people on ventilators right now since they've reopened the state.
Yeah.
So
I think it'd be a
keep in mind.
huge different discussion if things weren't working. Then we'd have to be really, you know, putting our heads together, try to figure out a way to make the office work. You know, and I say that in a broad sense of the staff getting things done and also the townspeople getting what they want. But right now that's all working. And so I think we don't really need to change too much. I mean, maybe tweak things here and there, but it's working. So, Paul.
Yeah, my thoughts, one of the things we did in the last week is we put up a barrier a strip to keep people out of the office portion that involves, you know, behind where Sarah's desk is, so that anybody going through there needs to get their permission to go in. They can't just walk into Sarah's desk, for example. And we put up, for those of you who haven't been there, a sneeze shield. It seems to me that unless Sarah or Terry have some other ideas, maintaining the way it is now, it's going to be a really long time before anything is going to change enough for us to feel comfortable opening all the way up. I'm inclined to leave it the way it is. Sarah's on here. She could nod or shake her head. But as long as we're protecting them and getting the job done, I think if they're protected and we get the job done, I don't see any real urge to change things. Because I'm more worried about them being protected and comfortable, and people continue to get the jobs done. I think we're doing all right.
I can speak to where I work. That's basically the attitude we've taken. If people are effective and productive working from home, then have them continue working from home. Now we're off through the 15th is when that stay-at-home order ends in New Hampshire. But yeah, there's no rush to say, okay, the 15th, everyone rush back in the office and let's figure it out. You know, it's definitely, if we do anything, it's going to be a transition. So I think that's really the way that businesses are reopening anyway. It's not looking like it did back in March. It's, you know, let's get a few people in, let's figure it out, let's keep people safe. So
the only change that I'm thinking about over how we're doing it now is I'm a little nervous about having only one person in there at a time. I'd like to see Terry and Sarah in there. I don't want to see any more traffic as such, but there are times when they're doing something and the phone's ringing and there's just the idea of having only one person there. We get people who come in with chips on their shoulders and come in who are angry about taxes or whatnot. And just having one of them there by themselves makes me a little nervous. I like the idea of safety, even though they have separate rooms and different schedules. I kind of like the idea of having a minimum of 2 people in the office. And Sarah's waving her hand.
Mm-hmm.
The door's locked. They can't come in unless we let them. Like, we don't let
You
them
may
in
not know how
in.
bad they are till they're there.
Right.
I'll run out the back door.
Okay.
And that shotgun. Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
That's under my desk.
We may have to rethink the part about not having dogs in the office.
okay.
Well, okay. I think that's good discussion. I mean, I'd like to just keep everybody up to speed on what's going on too. And certainly 10 years out there hearing things is good too, to bring back feedback. any other points, comments? I mean, I know it's a not an actionable agenda item, but I think it's always worth having out there for discussion. So we will jump now back to the regular items. Up on number 9, there was, it's a discussion of proposal for a community septic initiative. So the Planning Commission had been working on a number of different thoughts on how to move the town forward and keep up with the water and wastewater, which seems to be, or not seems, but is a limiting factor on what can be done in town, both economically, business-wise, and also for homeowner, for residents within the village. And so some ideas were thrown out there that I've shared that that Brian had pulled together regarding just taking some of the first steps to look at the feasibility of a community-wide septic. So basically, it's a large-scale leach field is kind of what it is. That would have multiple units that would be able to tie into it. And I know right now we're working through some septic issues in town from the health perspective. So I mean, it's definitely they're out there. And I guess Jessica's kind of taken the lead a little bit on this too, and just maybe it's from her close relationship with the Planning Commission. But anyways, I don't know if you wanted to add more to that. I mean, some of it is just kind of to say that that's been suggested from the Planning Commission, and as the Planning Commission's role is to bring proposals to us.
Right. So the one thing I would add is that, or just refine, is that it would not be community. So it's not for all of the town of Jamaica. It would be to resolve the congestion, if we can call it that, in the village area, right? So what's being looked at, in terms of the scope that would alleviate the issues within the village. So in other words, allowing both residences and commercial use buildings in the village center that are inhibited from, even residential properties having some issues with their septic. It would solve that. Because it would be of a size that would serve that need, it would be a relatively straightforward, less complex initiative. And the first steps that have to be undertaken, there is full funding available from the state. So in other words, we could submit an application to have our funding request considered. We have some pro bono support being offered to help us put together what a potential budget would be for an assessment, so the first phase. And as you know, Greg, there is annual funding available from the state of Vermont for villages to undertake these assessment phases. That fiscal year starts July 1. We know through contact with that division that no applications have been submitted for the fiscal year 2020-2021 yet. So if we submit this application, which is a very straightforward application that the Planning Commission would complete, we could find out relatively quickly whether we would be eligible to have an assessment, have full funding for an assessment. So this would, again, it would be with respect to a manageable size septic, which would be within just, I guess, technically within the confines of the village. We have a landowner who is willing to consider, basically contributing some space for this septic system, which is fantastic. So the combination of the funding that's available for the assessment, some good, energy at the Planning Commission level to complete the application, some pro bono guidance from Chrissy Haskins at Dufresne Group, and the fact that we would be very early in the queue for this kind of funding. I think we would, the select board can, kind of agree or resolve to have the Planning Commission pursue, putting together the application, and continue the work there. Ultimately, if we were to get the funding for the assessment, have the assessment performed, actually put together a proposal, what is referred to commonly as a shovel-ready proposal. In other words, you've got a vendor, you've got a project plan, you've got a budget. By the time we would have that in the next, perhaps, few months, infrastructure funding from the federal government on, with respect to the various COVID-19 federal statutes that have been enacted by Congress and that are currently being funded, we could be in an excellent position to actually get federal funding for this project. So I want to say that there is sort of a long-term goal also, or medium-term goal, to potentially have federal funding for the project. And even if we didn't have federal funding, there's other funding options. But in any event, it would, for the near term, we have the human resources within the town that are interested and dedicated and ready to pursue this. And we would be doing this with state funding rather than the town having to write a check for the initial assessment phase. Questions?
I saw Paul's first, so
Who's first?
I'll get to you, Tom.
The first question I have, if I read the proposal correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, are we not expected to pay the funds, pay the price up front and then submit invoices to get reimbursed for this, for the planning phases?
For a portion of for one set of the type of expenses, yes, for one set.
Which step? The first step?
You know what, Chrissy, so speaking of steps, the next step would be for Chrissy to prepare a budget for us. And in her budget, she would specify, we could see as a select board, first the planning commission, then us, what amount of funds and what type of funds and where we would actually have to put it up front and where we would not. And then we could have Terry weigh in terms of cash flow, whether that's feasible or not.
Yeah, I guess I'm hearkening back to spending $8,000 to find out if this is a good idea for the water study that we are not going to get back. I guess I'm wondering about how we can ensure that this isn't cost. It sounds like it doesn't cost us anything to get started until you read the fine print about, well, first we give them money and then we ask for it back.
Well, I think then what has to happen is Chrissy puts the budget together for the planning commission, and then we can assess that. Tom?
My questions may be premature, but are we talking the entire village? Are we talking Main Street? You said the congested areas down by D&K.
It's Main Street. It is Main Street, and I want to defer to Chrissy and Brian and then other members of the planning commission to say the size that they're looking at, that we all saw the 6,500 gallons per day, what that could.
Because I'm thinking, if you're pumping things up from Water Street Depot down, that's crazy.
Really,
how are you going to get that stuff over where the land is?
It was a simplified plan or theory, I guess, that it would be no pumping and that it would be selective. Like,
so you're running it down Main Street basically to
basically gravity, right?
Yeah, my gravity doesn't go up though, so I'm
right.
Andy and I are out of luck.
Right. Andy?
Yeah, Andy.
Muted.
You're muted.
Muted.
Still muted. There you go.
I got this thing right before I went to the Wyndham Regional, the same meeting Joel went, the commissioners meeting. I just thought it was an awful lot for me to absorb, well, for me anyway, to absorb. And obviously there's been some talk amongst, sounds like people in the board about this. I understand the planning commission has to put a plan together, but I think this is an awful lot to come up on an agenda to, I don't know if you're asking us to proceed with this. I think that someone from the planning commission should have presented this, not someone from the board, although I appreciate you doing it. And I would take a guess that one of these properties is yours, and I don't want any conflict of interest. And I just think,
do you mean mine? Like mine, Jessica?
Well, you may have a property in the village, And then I
Would you
just
mean
want to
my-
make sure that there's no conflict, that
Right.
you're presenting this. This is the first we're hearing about it. This is the first I'm hearing about it.
So,
Yeah.
so there's
So
no
this-
real, let me
No,
just
but
be sure.
just hear me out. I
Oh,
just
sorry, sorry.
I'm just wondering if you're asking us, as a select board member, speaking for the planning commission, to go forward with this. Before we pick this 2-page document apart, I read it 3 or 4 times. And, you know, is that what we're doing tonight before we talk about this for like 2 hours?
Yeah, I guess I'll speak to that because I was the one who put this on the agenda. And I apologize for, I mean, for obviously a lot to digest in a short amount of time. This is verbatim what Brian Zuroff had presented to me. So it wasn't constructed that it was coming from myself or Jessica or any one individual. So that addresses that point. And I guess this is, you know, what I had put this on here for was what you were saying, that just to say, let's make the recommendation or make the authorization or whatever the right term is, that the planning commission move forward with initiating this plan or proposal or researching it further. It wasn't authorizing or making any attempt to say, let's jump both feet in. So that's what I wanted to say toward that.
Yeah,
No, I
that
wasn't
was my
saying-
understanding, that they would come back to us. This is just kind of letting you know, this is what they're thinking about. There's people volunteering to pursue,
sounds good.
research and a presentation, a more full presentation. It's more in the nature of an update.
And my apologies if I came across like that you were presenting this. I didn't mean that. I just meant that, it is an awful lot, especially the times that we're going through. And as another board member said earlier, what our experience was with the water. I know these are 2 different animals, but I mean, when I read this, I just thought it was an awful lot to just be in this agenda that after we haven't met for 2 months, or 2, whatever, we missed a meeting, but I don't know. I think it's a lot to look at right now. I mean, that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we can take this and certainly I think that's a very valid point, that it is a lot to sink in and put it out there to, I mean, there's no obligation to jump in right now to make any decisions on it, other than I think I personally would like to encourage the planning commission to come forward again with a level of detail maybe deeper than this, but also to join this meeting and have Brian join the meeting. And I mean, we have some representatives from the planning commission here now, but to have Brian or somebody present it. Yeah, Chris.
I'd like to speak for Brian and remind the board that the town plan tells us to do this.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that, and I know, and I respect all your comments, Sandy. I mean, tremendously, that this is a big thing, and especially coming off the heels of the water, and whether, I mean, having it be right for the town is certainly a big question, but also having it done well so that the town is able to make a valid decision of whether this is right for the town is just as important. So we don't want to rush through anything, for sure.
I just have another question. That this document came to me today, to all of us, I suspect, at 2:45 or late out in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And could this go out in the minutes? I think the town needs to know what we're talking about. Besides, if we use this, or is that out of line? If we receive this document today to discuss this information, can this go out to the public?
It certainly is public information, and I think, like Chris said, this is this is a recommendation, and somebody said before too, this is kind of a an update almost of what's been happening. So I don't see any reason why not. I mean, I don't think there's any information in there that's privy to anybody. I mean, we want everybody.
I agree.
It just wasn't I'm fine with that. I really would, I think it would really help, it'd be more people would be get a heads up than just us and the planning commission and the people who know the planning, people on the planning commission. I mean, there is a lot of information in these 2 pages. It
Right,
gives
exactly.
A
No,
good,
I
a
mean,
good description. It gives a
Brian did a
good,
great job trying to pull together a huge, complicated thing into a document.
right.
Yeah.
So
Paul,
I don't know if that is, if it's out of line to, I'm not saying, I'm just trying to say that it would be good if this went out and people saw it. So, I think it's great information, but I don't know if it's appropriate or legal. That's what I'm asking.
Well, technically, it's
Because
public.
it wasn't on the agenda, this document anyway.
If I may
Publicly
offer,
available because it's communication to the board.
Okay.
So,
there's a piece of this that we should pay attention to. Minutes are going out. If we put it out as part of the minutes, that's an official action on the part of the select board. There's no reason why the planning commission couldn't publish it themselves and put it all in the same place as we put the minutes.
Okay.
As the minutes of the planning commission specifically titled this position. That way we don't get encumbered with the official minutes.
All right.
With
That's what I was
stuff that we
asking.
haven't acted on yet.
Or
That's
they can
what I was
post it as a document. Just if they want to get me a document, or Sarah, we can post it on just,
Sure.
basically the letter that's broken down. That's very concise. Just make it a document and post it out and say, this is something we have out there that we're considering.
I agree.
Okay.
Chris.
Yeah, if you post it on the planning commission section of the website, I'm sure we'd all be great with that.
Someone send me an email.
Yep.
Truthfully, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see a couple of hard copies in our usual places. At the post office and at Karen's places. A lot of people don't go on the internet looking for it. It wouldn't hurt to have those in some, hard copy locations.
Well, Karen's isn't, no one's there, so
Well, that's
at least for now.
That's not
The post
funny,
office.
but you have a point.
hang it from the rope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a cake.
Well, have someone from the select board or from the planning commission send it. If they send me a document, I can put it somewhere. I'll figure
Okay.
out a place to put it.
Yeah.
But I just want to, get it in writing.
Okay, well, good. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff, and there seems to be a lot of, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
All right, so next item 2, this has actually popped up as more of a discussion item also, but just to know that it's out there. Item 10, and I forgot, I should have put the word possible reclassification of the section of Turkey Mountain Road. So Lexa and Keith had sent an email, and I believe they sent it to everybody, regarding a suggestion to reclassify the approximately last 3/4 of a mile of Turkey Mountain Road, to reclassify it from a class 3 road down to a class 4. Part of that was because of the expense of maintaining that section of road with no residents out there, and the cost of redoing culverts and things like that. It's currently not plowed. I mean, the town does turn around at the last residence. And then subsequent to this be putting out the agenda, I mean, I had a conversation with Keith, and he's mentioned that there's several roads that kind of fit this criteria of sorts, if you want to call it that, where they're official town roads. We don't want to move toward getting them, removing them from the town, but do we, the question is, would we, not for tonight, but in general, do we want to move forward with reclassifying some of these with the aspect of maintenance costs and things? And I've asked them to put together a list of these roads of what some of the other ones, so all our mental capacity is thinking about them together, as opposed, I mean, even though they would need to be actioned on if we were going to change anything, each one of them is going to have its different pros and cons, but at least to have a proposal, possibly have the road commissioner come in and submit a proposal, or have Keith draw up something to say, what town roads, what town trails, what's out there that may or may not make sense for changing reclassification. So that's what this item's about. I may know more information if somebody had a question, but I think that's all the information I have. Any questions on that, or Joel?
Yeah, Wyndham Regional Commission has some definite feelings about giving up things.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we would literally give it up. We're not talking about reverting it back to the adjacent landowners or anything like that, but just to,
I would still confirm, I would still get information from Wyndham Regional. about
okay, right. Yep. And I know there's now some initiative to improve the trails in that area. There's a group in town now, the Jamaica Area Mountain Bike Association, that has gotten approval to go to a second level planning with the state park to develop, basically retool some existing trails in the state park to develop as mountain bike trails. So they've been given the preliminary approval to move forward with a plan for that. So some of those trails are accessed from up there. So there's a lot of nuances to this specific one, and there's probably that same level of nuance to every single road. And they should be looked at within all these recommendations for better roads or Wyndham Regional and everybody else. So that's out there. So that's an informative information that was brought up by the road commissioner. Any other comments on that or questions? Okay. On to item 11. This would be, well, I'll turn this over to Tom regarding the town office network.
Thank you. So I have I installed the security device and one of the APs in the office, and I also met with Chris Clark. I want to thank Lou for coming over and kind of showing us around. But we do have a plan, and I had to order some cables, which have arrived. So I'm waiting for Chris to get back with me. I have a couple of calls into him. He's going to run the wires and mount the access points. But at this point, the new network is actually up and running. So the new equipment is the old routers offline, and the new equipment is what people would use if they go into the office. So that project, like I say, I'm waiting for the vendor to get back with me, Chris Clark, and then once we get him to come into the office, we should be ready to go. Another thing I want to just mention again is we have these email addresses. Sarah, are you using the new email address? The town clerk at jamaicavermont.org? I know you had some issues with some stuff. Have you set that up in your Outlook?
I haven't switched it over yet. I just haven't had time.
Well, I mean, I can come over and help you. I think we should also do that for the treasurer and for the listers. We have like 100 accounts. So again, it just looks more professional. I'm willing to help any of the select board members who want to do that. Jessica has switched it over. I switched my address over. You know, if you need help, let me know. I've set addresses up for everybody, so it's there. And what we would do is, as I mentioned in another meeting, you know, we'd get you on the new system. We'd forward your old mail, the whatever, Fraser P at Jamaica Select Board at SVK. We'd forward that official email to your new address. And so it would be, you know, as long as we have the SV cable addresses active, you're not losing anything. And it works. I mean, I get stuff forwarded to me all the time. We did run into a situation where Sarah was on a listserv and it bounced a few times, probably because it was forwarding. But that just is an indication she needs to go back to the listserv and sign up with the new address, you know. And eventually, as time works through and you publish the new address or use it for different things, then, you know, the addresses to the email to the old address get smaller and smaller and smaller. Any other questions around that? Just let me know if you guys need help, if you want to do it. I mean, I don't think we're mandating it, but like I said, it just looks a lot professional, a little more professional than the other. The last thing I wanted to mention was industry standard on websites now is to have what they call an SSL certificate. And basically the SSL certificate creates a secure connection between the website and the end user's browser. We don't do that. So not that we have a lot on our website that's confidential or private, it's just really industry best practice. The cost of an SSL certificate is somewhere between $65 and $99 a year. And I could work to set that up on our WordPress site. I would recommend it just because then you have a secure connection. And if any data was passed, like passwords or anything, then it's protected. But I would need, I mean, if you want me to prove 60, like I said, I just looked at the prices real quick on GoDaddy. and the basic certificate 65, and then I think the deluxe is 99. And knowing GoDaddy, probably the basic is pretty basic. But again, we don't have e-commerce. We don't have a lot of stuff like that that necessarily needs protection. But again, it's kind of the direction ways are going. A lot of search engines and such will flag you as a website that doesn't have an SSL certificate, and then you get flagged. So that's why people are doing it. Paul, you have a question?
Oh,
You're
muted.
Muted.
You're muted.
People pay money to have me muted.
Not working.
How does this differentiate? I thought the new upgrade that we just spent like $400 on made us more secure. This is something in addition to that?
This is on the website. So the website is hosted out at GoDaddy. It's
Okay.
outside of the organization. What's more secure is our wireless network, and our networks are more secure now locally here at the town office.
I got you.
What I'm talking about is when you go to jamaicavermont.org, it'll now be an encrypted connection out to the website and back, or anybody goes there, which again, is just industry standard now. Very few websites are non-encrypted. But
Gotcha.
just saying, if the board wants me to move forward, I can do that. I'll try to get it done.
You want anybody make a motion on that?
Well, I don't know if we need a motion because it's under $100. So,
Yeah. Okay.
although I've been spending a lot of money for the other stuff, but it's good for us. It's good for us to get there. The other thing that people had requested, well, I mean, let me know if you guys want me to move forward. If not, that's fine. I mean, it's not going to break anything. Part of it too could give us some protections from hacking and stuff. Again, because you're not passing clear text and things. It's
the 21st century is what you're trying to tell us.
Yeah. People are out there hacking stuff all the time. So anything you can put in their way is good. You know, it just saves on the back end. As we found out when we had to do that stuff with GoDaddy and have them clean up our website, and it was to a tune of $1,100 or whatever. Okay. Well, what do you want me to move forward or not?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
But I don't know about
Got
everybody
the
else.
consensus?
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing,
My only fear is that if you get us upgraded to an industry standard in the TI world, then you have to find some industry standard select board members.
you're already in too deep, Paul. It's too late. The last thing is everyone had asked us to get a Zoom license. This again is my Zoom license that I'm using for the meetings. I think I contacted them. I think it's $149 a year or $199 a year. I don't know. Hold on a second. I haven't done it yet. And I contacted him. He said the best way to do it is just sign up. So I can talk to Terry and get a credit card. I just wanted to make sure people were still interested in doing that.
I know it came up, and I think it makes sense as a town as a whole because there's several organizations that are possibly using it. It's not just us, and we won't always be able to jump in on yours. I mean, it's in theory, it's the school board, not necessarily school board, but I mean, it's the planning commission, it's the listers,
right?
But
we could just
be a number of other meetings. I mean, the Jamaica Fire Department is looking at us right there,
right.
possibly on the library, things like that. So
yeah, $149.90 annually for a pro version of Zoom.
And that would allow all those user groups to have access to it?
Yeah, because I mean, as long as we're not, let me research that. I know often they want named licenses, but we could just do it for the town clerk and it just becomes the de facto license for, as long as we're only using it. You know, what they don't want is a large organization to say, oh, we're going to buy 100 licenses and then everyone gets, each 10 people get one license. That's what they're trying to avoid. We're pretty small. I see it where that could be an issue, but let me check with them before. I don't want to get us in legal anything.
Yeah.
Let's see
The only thought I have about this, and it's my usual position of being countered everything that involves the 21st century, is so far we've had 3 or 4 Zoom meetings.
Mm-hmm.
we don't know how much longer we're going to be doing this. If we go back to regular meetings, when will the next time we do the Zoom? If we have another wave of pandemic where we all go back and hunker into our bunkers, that may be worthwhile. I'm thinking that we're going to be over with this here shortly.
Yeah, it's $14.99 a month, so we can cancel at any time. We can cancel. I mean, we're not signing any long-term, and even if we signed a one-year contract, might get a break on something for that. We're talking about a year.
Yeah.
And my guess is, you know, the other piece is too, we can do the meetings like this where everyone's remote, but we could also open a channel and broadcast the meetings via Zoom to public, and have, if public wanted to be at a meeting where we're all sitting at a table, they would have a camera on us on a computer, and people could log into the meeting remotely. If they're not comfortable coming to the town hall or unavailable to come to the town hall, then they could get in remotely to our meetings. So, you know, that's a shift in what we've been doing, but just an idea. So you're basically synchronously broadcasting your meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some measure of remote activity in every aspect of life is now permanent. So I would endorse it.
As I go back to my work experience, that's basically, you know, I work for a university, and basically every event, every club, everything now, that's exactly what they said. Everything will have a remote capability for people who can't or are unable to come in, can get there remotely.
And if I may add, many towns have cable broadcast of their town meetings, and I don't think we do. So you can always record it and have it available.
Well, we do, because that's why Rich is here. Rich is from BCTV, and they record it and post it up, and then we link that to our website. So yeah.
Okay, sorry about
we do record it. Yep.
I think
Whenever I get around to putting them up there, sometimes I miss a couple. It is up to date right now, though.
Andy.
I think, you know, thanks to Tom's graciousness, you know, with all the other stuff he's been doing for us, I think we should do it so he doesn't have to facilitate these meetings too. I mean, if it wasn't Tom doing it, it would be one of us, but, you know, I have a feeling that we're going to be doing it at least a couple, 2 or 3, you know, another month anyway.
I would say till August at least.
Couple months maybe, and then, you know, it's going to be fall. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if we're in for a 1-year commitment, that's not really that big a thing. If
No.
that gets
I don't think we are. I think it's monthly. He said it's $4.99 monthly or $14.99 monthly, $149 for the year. So, and this is a sales guy I work with for the university. I was trying to say, hey, we're a municipality. Can't we get it for free? He wasn't really going for that. You know, or is there a deep discount? But he didn't. I don't think they do that. I'll reach out to him again. I'll say, you know, we're government. What
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
You're not going to give us 30% off? Come on. 10%? But
I think we investigate further, and it makes total sense for us.
Okay. So I've done that. Yeah. So I will buy the certificate and install it, and I will also then get the Zoom license, and I will set it up with the town clerk, the new town clerk email address, because you have to have it tied to an email address. So it shouldn't be one of the select board, because town clerk is a generic. Go ahead. I'm on a call.
Okay.
So, okay.
Sarah, did
That's
you
all.
I saw Sarah's lips moving, but she's muted.
She prefers to remain muted.
I said I'm just talking to myself. I said I don't even have a password, but whatever, it's fine.
Oh.
So as I segue, I'm going to just step in here as we segue into the school vote. I just wanted to congratulate all of the seniors at Leland and Gray from Jamaica, and the grade schools, the 5th graders graduating from Jamaica School, because that's all happening this week. And it's great that Leland and Gray is actually doing a ceremony this weekend.
Yeah, it's awesome.
For the parents. It's really great. So thank them for that, and thank the people who set up the banners down in Leland and Gray too. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And yes, as the segue, remember, vote on Wednesday. School budget vote. And also just a reminder, public service announcement to complete the census form. Vermont's lagging. We want to get counted. There's very few of us already.
Right.
Andy.
At that window Regional Committee meeting, that was brought up, exactly what you just said. For a number of reasons why we think people aren't filling out the census, and if you haven't filled it out, it would be helpful if you did. And boy, did they talk about maybe the reasons why they're not getting filled out. People don't want to give government information and all this other stuff, but Vermont really has a small percentage that has taken it, has filled out the census. And it,
Yeah.
you know, he went on to explain, you know, how it helps with funding and a number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, I think you have till, I don't know if Joel's still on, till August or something to do it, I think.
I don't remember the date, but it's
It was
not.
a little ways off, but more time
it's
to
a ways off.
procrastinate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other, we'll jump into public concerns. I see, I'm guessing that's, well, we've got Tom, and I'm guessing Bob's hiding behind there somewhere too.
I just want to mention that the second edition of the Jamaica Journal is out. And if people want to sign up for that, they can go to jamaicajournal.info, type in their email address, and every month you'll get a list of all the events and activities that are going on in the town of Jamaica. So
It's
check it out.
fantastic.
It
Everybody.
looks great, yeah.
We've gone from having, the first month we had about 30 users, and now we're over 100. So it's really getting we're starting to get some steam, and really excited about it. So sign up if you can.
Go sign up. There's a link on our homepage of the town website.
There is also a link on the town website, yes.
Great publication.
Thank you.
Paul.
It's not so much a public concern, but I heard you mention Bob's name. For whatever reason, Bob Stomsky wasn't able to get audio, so I've got him on my cell phone, and I'm watching for Texas. And so far, he hasn't said anything that he wanted to weigh in on, but he's listening to us. So, Sarah, you want to put him on as a guest? He's still here. He's just
Okay. Well, thank you, Bob, for participating. It's great to see all these different groups involved.
Yeah, I can't unmute him. He doesn't have a microphone.
no.
Oh, wait, hold on. Bob?
I'm watching my Twitter.
Bob, can you talk? Yeah, it's not working.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh well.
He's on a different computer than usual. He's
Yeah,
he's at the firehouse.
a speaker or something, or microphone.
Yeah, he's at the firehouse.
Okay. Anybody else? Andy.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have to have that approved, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night,
Rick.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, Chris.
Rich, I'll get this to
Oh,
you in the
look, there it
morning.
is right there.
Good night,
Oh,
everyone.
time out. There's just something from Bob just popped up. Did you see that?
Chat.
Are we still aboard?
It
Oh.
says,
Just
hit
got a
the
message.
chat. Hit the chat. There's a message from him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he wants to know if the town will be notified of road closures when paving begins.
Certainly will be. Right as of now, there's no schedule for the paving. It is slated for this summer, but don't have any inkling right now as to timing. But that's a good reminder.
Good.
Okay.
Excellent.